All right, let's get into it. Today, we are breaking down a really honest, really raw podcast discussion about a super tough topic. What happens when that trust in your relationship just starts to feel shaky? And more importantly, how we often end up looking for answers in all the wrong places. Okay, so this is where it all started. The entire conversation we're digging into today was kicked off by this one single question. And look, it's a provocative question, for sure. But it's one that really taps into a lot of that deep anxiety and speculation that bubbles up when things in a relationship just feel off.
So first up, let's look at how the guests on the show initially answered that question. These are those common, street-level theories and signs that were thrown out there. The kind of stuff people tend to grab onto when they're trying to figure out why their partner is acting so strange.
Right out of the gate, a few of the guests pointed to this one specific kind of behavior, this really aggressive, over-the-top masculine performance. The theory they had was that all of this, being super harsh, constantly bragging, it might just be a way to overcompensate for something they're trying to hide.
And that idea just builds on this next point from one of the guests, Desiree. She said that extreme defensiveness could be a major red flag. They also brought up the idea of a man who seems to care way more about his homeboys than his actual partner, which, points to a huge disconnect right there.
And from there, the conversation took a pretty wild turn. It veered straight into one of the most persistent but totally unfounded theories that you hear in these kinds of discussions.
Wow. Yeah, this right here is the perfect example of the kind of wild myths that get passed around. It's completely based on a feeling, not a single fact. And honestly, it's this exact kind of speculation that made the podcast hosts say, okay, wait a minute, and completely pivot the entire conversation.
And that brings us to the real turning point. This is where the hosts, Blaze, Reke, and Nikki, they step in to reframe this whole thing. They move the conversation away from all these myths and bring it towards something much more grounded and, frankly, a whole lot more helpful.
And boom, with this one line, the host Blaze just cuts through all that noise. The message is crystal clear. Trying to clock somebody based on stereotypes and how they look, that's a waste of your time. It's time to focus on what actually matters.
So this is the absolute crucial point the hosts make. If you're focusing on all these supposed signs, you're asking the completely wrong question. The real issue here isn't what your partner might be hiding, it's the simple, painful fact that they're hiding something from you at all.
This slide just lays it out so perfectly. The whole conversation shifts from speculating about a partner's secret life to facing the hard reality of the situation. Is he being honest? Is he being respectful? Suddenly, the details of the secret don't matter nearly as much as the betrayal itself.
And the host Nikki Love makes this incredibly sharp point. A lot of those so-called signs people brought up at the beginning, like being mean to women or being super aggressive, that's not a clue about someone's sexuality. That's just a sign of a toxic, disrespectful person, period.
So that leads us to the most useful part of this whole discussion. If the old stereotypes are useless, what should you actually be looking for?
Well, the hosts lay out some universal signs of dishonesty that apply to any relationship, no matter the situation.
Forget the stereotypes. These are the real, concrete things that signal a problem. Is he suddenly guarding his phone like it holds government secrets? Are his stories about working late full of holes? Has he just completely checked out emotionally? And the big one? Are there health issues popping up that just don't make sense? These are the real red flags.
This quote from Blaze is really the heart of it all, isn't it? It's such a powerful reminder that you find out who someone really is, not by their pretty words or their excuses, but by their consistent, day-to-day patterns of behavior. Actions, not words.
So, with all that in your head, what do you actually do? Let's get into the host's actionable advice. This is their clear game plan for protecting your health, your heart, and for demanding the honesty that you absolutely deserve.
I love this slide because it just summarizes the entire journey of the conversation, right? It shows you the myths from the streets right next to the heart truth from the hosts. And what's the one thing that actually holds up? The shady stuff, the deceptive actions. That's the only reliable indicator.
So here is the path forward. It's not about being a detective anymore. It's about taking back control. The advice is simple. Confront the problem head on. Make your health your absolute #1 priority. And, like we just heard, trust what he does, not what he says.
Host Nikki Love just drops this powerful truth bomb, and it's so real. The very fact that you feel like you have to investigate your own partner, that's the biggest red flag of all.
It means the foundation of the whole relationship, trust, is already gone.
And this, right here, is the final, most essential piece of advice. Stop obsessing over the details of what might have happened, who it was with, or what they did. The most important question you can ask is, how are you being treated? Is it with respect? Is it with love? Is it with honesty?
And that leaves us right here with the central question of this whole breakdown. When you strip away all the myths, all the stereotypes, all the speculation, you're left with a much clearer and much more powerful question to ask yourself about what you truly need and what you deserve in a relationship.